I am thrilled. I just received this parcel. Let's open it up and see what's in there. Finally, I have a Frank Yi Cork Bark Jade. This has been shipped to me by a friend of mine. Unfortunately, it was not a gift. I had to buy it. But I've been looking for one of these for so long. This is a jade, and as you can see, it creates a really cool bark. Let's plant this up and get it in the pot and back to life. Not everything fit in the box, so it was pruned back a little bit, and the cuttings were in the box as well. I can plant these up as cuttings as well. Jades don't like wet feet, so I'm using a pot with a very large hole, some mesh in the bottom, wet substrate, pumice, akadama, lava, and a little bit of clay and a little bit of pine bark. But that's too wet, so 2/3 is dry substrate. That way the roots won't rot. Right, I've got this all potted up and I'll show you a close-up of the bark. This is really cool. So this is an elephant bush, but it's an elephant bush that has really corky bark. And that is quite rare. In fact, there's only one plant known as the mother plant. I think it is called the Frank Yi Cork Bark Jade. And it comes from the USA. It is very rare in Europe. And I was so excited when a friend called me and said, I can get you one of those plants. It's going to be bare rooted. It's going to be dried out because it's been in storage for a bit. But if you want to take the risk, I can get it to you. So I said yes. They sent it to me. This is now potted up, ready to sit in a warm spot and wait for this to reroot. I'm really excited because I was sent some cuttings by someone and they all died. So now I am a little bit concerned with these guys. But I'm still going to try. I'm just going to plop these in the container, about 1/3, 2/3, above 1/3 in, and no leaves in the soil. Push them in. I'm not using any rooting hormone. As said, the substrate that I'm using is very dry, and that is because these rot very easily. Now I know that the leaves in itself can root as well, but it is quite rare to be successful. So I'm just pulling those off and also planting those without leaves. Let's see how that goes. So I'm popping these little lower ones off and plant this up as a little cutting. Now here there are a lot of them, and I think I might actually have to cut these off because these are quite strong. But now I will want to give these a few days to dry these wounds. The leaves I might also spread out on top of the surface, and maybe a few roots will emerge now that they're in contact with the substrate, but I don't think so. All done for now. Let's wait a couple of weeks and see how they recover. A week has passed and I feel that the leaves have swollen up a little bit, are a little bit more glossy. The stems look like they have taken up a little bit of water, so that means that the roots are active. Now, because I'm not completely sure, I'm not just going to completely shower it with water, but I'm just taking a little bit of water and I just drip it in at the edges of the pot. Then if there's any active root tips, they will also be at the edge of the pot, but I avoid the core of this trunk getting very wet, because that is of course where I really want to avoid any rot taking place. That will of course be sucked in, but only as humidity and not as soaking wetness. Now I hope that over the next couple of days I can see these growing tips swell up more. Maybe there will be more growing tips in a couple of days, and then I am confident enough that these roots have woken up, and then I give it a full shower. But initially, as it is waking up and it has just gone from a complete bare root, dried out plant into a pot, I feel I need to water it very gently at first, to water fully later. Maybe next. This needs to be wired up or cut off. Let's see. This is going to be a new leader, I think. And for the cuttings I have of course a very similar concern. I don't want this to get wet while they're not rooted. So just a few drops here and there on the edge of the pot, just to increase the level of humidity in the pot. 2 weeks have passed since I potted this up, and I think that this has rooted in. What I can see is a little bit of a shine on some of these growing tips. I believe that there's a new growing tip opening up in the middle, and I think the ends of the young branches are a little bit more succulent than they were before. So that means, to me, it's time to take a risk. I'm going to water it through and through and see how this develops. The cuttings, they're still standing, they're still waiting. In fact, don't think those have rooted. I'm quite happy. It is the middle of August and we are going through the second heat wave of the year. Temperatures have soared to about 35 Celsius, say 100 Fahrenheit almost. And this tree is loving it. Look at that old tree. I have shiny new growing tips all over the plant, which is a sign this is growing. I have been watering daily and now I can start fertilizing as well. These, I'm not sure yet, but I think I see little growing tips here starting to form, so I think these have rooted, but I'm not going to disturb them. They can stay in this pot well throughout winter and next year I can look at it. But the little joke that I had by throwing all these little things in here, I think some of them have actually calloused over and they're showing little white tips. So I'm actually going to try to pot them up properly, because this looks like it has roots. I'm going to use very fine substrate, small pot. Let's bring it out and just plant these in there. And so I have this old little pot. It's a little damaged, but it will do. And just a layer of substrate in the bottom just to fill it up, because I don't have all that much of my finest substrate. And then I'll add a layer of fine substrate on there. Should actually soak this in water before I continue, because that way the substrate is heavy enough to keep the cuttings upwards. Grab one, plant them in a little hole. It seems to stay upright, just have to be careful with watering. And to be honest, there's a whole bunch of leaves that also were left over. This is actually a cutting with a root. Let's plant that up properly. But all those leaves without a stem, I don't think I've seen jade propagate from those all that well. Incidentally, one roots, but most of the time they just dry up, fall apart and disappear. So I'm going to keep them, I'm going to put them in here, but I don't have very high hopes for these. And of course, I'm just as impatient as everybody else, right? I want to know whether there's roots on these. So I'm going to take this smallest one and lift it and see whether this is actually rooting. Look at that. This is rooting. That's a really good news. And it's just going to go straight back in here. It is the end of September and will you look at that. These have done really well. They are fully rooted, they're fully healthy. All this extension of just one season. And even these tiny little cuttings here. Look at that, how well they've done. The leaves, well, I see 2, 3 leaves still on there that still look alive. There's still no sprouting, but who knows, that might still come. I'm just going to give this over winter and see whether they start growing in spring. Rooted, growing well, rooted, growing well, growing well. It's June, can't believe it's been almost a full year. But this looks pretty good, it's growing well. And also, the cuttings took root. I might be saying, well, these haven't grown all that much, and you are absolutely right, because in the middle of winter I decided they were getting too big. So what did I do? Cut them back. And this is the result. A whole other tray of cuttings, some of which are starting to root now. Basically, what I'm now thinking about is the design of this tree. And already quite early on I decided there's 2 branches here that sit really close to each other, and actually the tree doesn't need it. If I just have this as a main trunk, then I don't need those 2. They've just served their purpose of flattening up this base. So maybe I should just cut them off and see what I can grow these on as an individual bonsai. Interesting thought. I would recommend you subscribing to the channel because that is going to be the next video on this plant, is removing very large branches, getting those to root as an individual tree. And I know it's not a pure fundamental bonsai. Please don't put it in the comments that you don't think jade can make a bonsai. I grow lots of things and this is on the margin, but I do know a lot of people do like jades. I know they do grow them as bonsai and they can make pretty impressive specimens. If you don't know how to care for them, check out that video. If you want to know what else I've published, how about my beginners playlist? The Cork Bark Jade. How cool is that?